Welcome back to the Spiritual Business Blueprint. I'm Tracy Ann Rose, and today's episode is titled, Why Your Nervous System is Blocking Your Next Income Level. Hi, I'm Tracy Ann Rose, and I help spiritual high-achieving women of color break through income ceilings by tapping into their intuition without burning down their business. Welcome back to the Spiritual Business Blueprint. I'm Tracy Ann Rose, and today's episode is titled, Why Your Nervous System is Blocking Your Next Income Level with Alyssa Harris. And this episode is a bit of a happy accident. My family is catching all the viruses right now, and I wasn't able to record a full episode by myself. So today's episode is actually from an interview that I did with Alyssa Harris in her Trust the Pivot Summit earlier this year. So I will be the interviewee as we discuss how to work with your nervous system to turn fear into forward momentum in your business, as Alyssa puts it. So be sure to stay tuned until the end because I'll be sharing practical tools to overcome imposter syndrome, reprogram limiting beliefs, and teach you how to reset your nervous system in real time. So before we dive in, let me introduce Alyssa Harris. Alyssa Harris is a mindset coach and energetic strategist for ambitious souls navigating seasons of change. She helps heart-led entrepreneurs redefine who they are and how they lead based on their energetic blueprint so they move into the next chapter with clarity, courage, and unshakable self-trust. No burning out, betraying yourself, or starting from scratch necessary. Please enjoy the interview.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the Trust the Pivot event. I hope you have been having as good a time as I have. Today, we have one of my best friends in the whole world, also just one of the most brilliant humans I've ever met, Tracy Ann Rose. Tracy, if you could introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, people. Welcome, listeners. I'm Tracy Ann Rose. I am a spiritual sales coach. I'm a speaker and I'm an author. And I usually help high-achieving women of color, especially, but women in particular, break through income ceilings so that they're able to reconnect with their intuition and have a life that looks as good as let me reverse that feels as good as it looks on paper.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And she's very good at it. Okay, so let's dive right in. Today, our topic is imposter syndrome. So we've been talking a lot about mindset throughout the event. And Tracy, when you are about to do something that matters, when you're about to launch an offer or speak on a stage, which you've done so many times, or make a pivot in your business, which I know you've done recently. What does imposter syndrome actually feel like in your body? Like we've talked a lot, like I said, about mindset, but how does it show up when, it's not just in your thoughts, but in your body?
Oh, yeah. So we do have a physiological response to imposter syndrome, right? How it can show up in the body in very simple ways, restlessness. So you feel like you need to move a lot. You might feel fidgety, agitating, depending on the scope of your interview, like if it's tighter or if it's looser. You might find, I've noticed with like actors, for those of you who know my work, I used to be in the entertainment industry. If they're tight on your face, you might suddenly develop a twitch. So it's like almost as though the part of your body that's going to be receiving attention starts to feel that energetically in advance. So that can come out as twitches, restlessness, moving around a lot, obviously like heart palpitations, physiological symptoms very similar to anxiety. So you might feel sweaty, you might, like I said, feel restless, you might notice your thoughts racing or you can't focus. These are some of the ways that imposter syndrome will show up in your physical body, or you might even just like simply get sick. I've noticed when sometimes it's too big of an energetic jump, you'll just be so freaked out. You'll just be sick and you won't have any ways to work through it. And that's usually, once again, not having that mindset piece in place to prepare you on an energetic level.
Yeah. Yeah. I've both seen it in clients and been a victim to the body just saying no, right? Like it's the day of, your throat is hurting, your head is hurting, you're debilitated. Like I've definitely been there. And I love that reframe of it's your body saying no. It's not that like, it's just that imposter syndrome, you haven't dealt with those energies or those thoughts. And so it's manifested in your body and you just can't do it.
Not yet, not yet. I don't want anyone to feel like they'll never get there. It's
Right.
just, you don't have all the tools, all the support that you need yet for that level.
Yes, yes. And we've talked a lot about perfectionism, both in the summit and between the two of us personally. And you've talked before about how we use perfectionism as a shield, right? Can you walk us through what that actually looks like? Like, what's the difference between someone who's preparing really well and is just a detail oriented person versus someone who's hiding behind perfectionism because imposter syndrome has convinced them that they're not ready for the big thing?
So the difference between perfectionism in service to imposter syndrome, perfectionism in service to actually being of service, is detachment versus attachment. So are you attached to every little thing? Are you micromanaging every step of the way? Do you feel like if your hands aren't on top of it, that it's going to fall apart? That is a sign that it is your fear that's driving the imposter syndrome. Your fear is driving the bus. If you have a sense of detachment and it's purely in service to other people and their vision, that's another good way to look at it. Another way that you can kind of refocus the energy or reframe it is, are you focused on yourself or are you focused on the other person? Because when we're focused on ourselves, right, like we can never be perfect enough. But when we focus on the other person, their journey, their experience, we're able to find the nuances in the moment to serve that person and focus on the details that will be important to their transformation.
Yes. Yeah. And so often, we forget how helpful we are to people. We forget, people, especially highly ambitious, like capable people, you'll use the finish line of one goal to be the start line of the next goal. And you forget to actually celebrate yourself, like do that end zone dance. I don't watch sports, but I know that part, of football, do that dance in the end zone, like be proud of yourself, a lot of ambitious people like are building something that's working, right? You have clients, you're making money, people respect what you do. And like I was saying, then you're about to step into something bigger. Maybe you're going to increase your prices. Maybe it's going to be more visibility or just a complete and total rebrand of your business, doing something completely new, a pivot.
Yes.
And then suddenly it feels like everything that you've built is at risk, right? Or as you're preparing to build the new thing, you, like I said, have amnesia about everything that you've done in the past. What would you say is actually happening there, Tracy Ann? Like, why does growth feel so dangerous, even though we have dedicated, like our actions in our past show, we've dedicated ourselves to growth?
It's just the physiological effects of something new on the body. So whenever we're trying something new, of course, our brain gets involved with the thoughts, and then those thoughts fuel the feelings in our body. So when we have an imposter syndrome and we're feeling that tension around the pivot, what's happening is that we're fearing vulnerability. We're fearing being caught not being great at something that we're trying for the first time. Fearing being pulled out, right? Like we have all these different things that come to the surface for us in that moment. But it's just our brain saying, hey, we haven't done a lot of emotional work around this. We haven't maybe been strategic with our energy like you help people do. And that's why this feels like such a big leap. So recognize the myths that your brain is telling you, why it's telling you that it's not enough. And then I also want you to look at your childhood and notice when you receive similar phrasing about an accomplishment. Were your parents constantly asking you for more? Did you ever feel like it was enough? When you did accomplish something, did your parents even notice? Or was it just kind of swept under the rug? Like, while this other thing is happening, were they more focused on putting out fires or like helping you shine? So that can also be some of the things that come up whenever it's time. Our body remembers. So we still have those physiological effects of like, oh my gosh, I'm about to do something new. What will my parents think? But our brain gets more advanced, right? Like we start to think about our peers, we start to think about the industry. And then it tells us like, and I found this was so interesting. An interesting neuroscience fact: overwhelm only comes if your brain has already decided that you're not prepared for the thing at hand.
I didn't know that. That's very cool.
So if you've already decided that you're not ready for it, you're telling your body what chemicals to produce so that you create the actions or maybe the symptoms in your body so that you're not ready for it. So instead, what I would say, if you're having that experience when it's time to trust the pivot, maybe make that announcement or finally commit to that new I help phrase, it's just reminding yourself that this is what you want. This is what you want. And then do something to help you celebrate that physiologically. You like dancing is always great to remove tension, right? And get a little bit loose, dance, talk to yourself in the mirror, high five yourself in the mirror. Lots of great things that you can do really quickly, really easily to just reset in that moment and remind yourself of why you're doing it. Not to seem perfect, but because this is more in alignment with who you are, your energy, who you want to serve.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think external validation is such an important piece. And it's a lot of the way that we try to stave off imposter syndrome. It's like, oh, if I can just prove this person wrong, or if I can make this person proud. And you've shared that growing up in predominantly white spaces, feeling like an outsider, not having that external validation that, I mean, we honestly, like, it is an inherent need, right? And being an intuitive on top of that. So being able to tell, you're saying something out of your mouth, but I can totally feel the energy that you're giving off. And so I'm curious, how does that experience of being kind of othered show up later as imposter syndrome for people that may be having a similar experience, especially in business? And how did you eventually recognize that those same things that you were criticized for are actually your strength?
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm breaking it down correctly. First, we're talking about how it felt to be othered and how that showed up in my business in terms of imposter syndrome. Yes. So with a million ways. So when I was getting started, I was so scared. I was terrified, especially because I was pivoting from a career in acting to a career essentially doing energy work, which is not a real thing if you're Jamaican. It's not a real thing. And so, and I have Jamaican American ancestry. My family immigrated over here to the South. So we started in Miami, we moved to a small town in Tennessee, and that is really where I internalized most of my othering until we moved to Atlanta in Georgia. So initially, I was feeling othered for being Black, for being from a different culture, for having different textured hair. And all of those things I wasn't aware were considered, I guess, negative or unattractive until I was my classmates ranked the kids or the girls, specifically the boys, ranked the girls in order of who they would want to marry. And I got dead last publicly, but I was friends with all the boys, and privately they ranked me way higher. And so I started to realize, okay, there's something about perception here. There's something on a social level that maybe I don't quite understand and I need to be a little bit more aware of. And so what that actually caused me to do is to start finding my people very early on. So even though I was being othered for these things like my skin color or the texture of my hair, I was like, you know what? I have friends who love to hear about my dreams and who love to hold hands and just listen to the wind and see what messages come up. Like, I'm going to spend more time with those people. So that was one thing that helped me move through the imposter syndrome, is realizing that kind of eliminating those that don't work for you, it hones you in on what does work for you. And the sensitivity, that was another big thing. Like you said, I'm an empath. I'm very sensitive to energy. I don't like outside. I just don't like, I like outdoors. I don't like people. Yeah, I'm going to say I love people. It's hard to be in public places sometimes when the energy is helter-skelter, for sure. So what I learned about that is that it's not wrong to be different, especially if you're somebody who's neurodivergent and you found out later in life, you're like, oh, like I'm normal. Like my brain does work. It just doesn't work like most of the population with you, if you will. But it doesn't mean that there's not a gift to it. So as you were saying, like noticing people saying one thing with a tone, but then their body language is kind of presenting something different than what they're saying. I realize that's a gift, right? Like, especially if you're in the service industry, if you're a service provider or a coach, anything like that, you're able to see the layers of truth. So you can see where the person is saying that they're at and where they're actually at, or what's actually motivating them, and be able to have compassion for maybe their lack of awareness in that gap. Or you can slowly, gently bring them to that awareness, or ask some questions that help them reach that level of awareness. So I learned that being different helps you find your people more quickly. It hones your skills in actually helping people. And then also, it just makes you unique. Like, there's nobody who's going to live the way that you live. There's nobody who's going to work in the way that you work or have your genius. Celebrate that. Celebrate that. It makes you special. It makes you unique. Your story makes you who you are if you are willing to use it as a hero's journey and not a story of failure.
Absolutely. And so much of our story comes from the story we tell ourselves, right?
Right.
Like, I've seen that a million times where someone will have a glorious, incredible story, but they'll be so stuck in the obstacles and the struggles of the story that they don't even see how far they've come. So I want to like pivot a little bit to your astrology. So you have Aquarius in the 10th house as a Taurus rising, and you've tried all the things, right? You've been a business owner for a while. And so you've tried the posting every day, the 30-day challenges, all of these strategies that work for everyone else, right? They say, here, I'm giving you the keys to success.
Right.
Here you go, right? But you realize they were energy sucks for you. Can you walk us through how you recognize that? And more importantly, how does someone else, like how can the people watching distinguish between I'm uncomfortable because this is new versus this is fundamentally misaligned with how I am like built. This is fundamentally misaligned with how my brain works.
Yes. So for me, what it was just, I like to experiment. If you guys are also human design nerds, I have a 6 in my profile. So I like to play, I like to experiment. So, and then I'm also life path 7, which is a truth seeker. So I always want to test it out before I say, no, like that's not for me. And so I tested, for example, the 30-day posting challenge 3 times. And every time, so 2 things that I looked at, how I felt afterwards. And then the second thing that I looked at, what were the results? Did I get the results that I wanted? And in both cases, they were misaligned. The first was I did not feel good about posting every day. It was like, yes, I did it, but it didn't feel as meaningful as if I had taken some more time to maybe craft something that felt like a better representation of how I serve people. So that was one thing, right? And then the second thing for me was, okay, results. Like, what results did I get? And I did sign a client from that experience, but that client really wasn't ready to carve out the time to do the work, and they had a lot of life conflicts. And once again, it just showed me, okay, if the strategy does not support me, it's not going to support my business. So this is where you learn to pivot. So how do you know if your strategy is supporting you, but you're just nervous or scared to try something new, right? So I would say the same thing, try it and look at the data. See how you feel during the process. If there are any parts where your brain really kicks up or it just feels like impossible to do, really note those places, because that's just where you need some additional support in working through something that is aligned for you. So if you successfully try it, you realize like, okay, this did drain my energy. It didn't bring in the quality of people that I want. I need to find something else, right? So if that's what's going on for you, but I also want you to look at your thoughts before. I know I'm giving you a lot, but if you look at your thoughts before and they're racing, if they're anxious thoughts, if they're not grounded, that's another sign that you're just trying to do what you think you should do instead of being yourself in your business. So if it makes sense to you, if it feels peaceful in your body, especially if you're a manifestor, if it feels like satisfaction or success, like, yes, this would feel good just to do, not even for the results. That's already a sign that you're on the right track. And then you can use the results to back that up if you need to make a pivot, if you need to tweak something.
Yeah, I love that so much.
I hope you guys are enjoying the conversation as much as I am so far. And I hope you're seeing how to reset your nervous system and to recognize when and why it's blocking that next income level. It's actually something that I see often and I help clients with. If you want to explore this further, there's more in the description below. Now, back to today's episode.
You mentioned a lot there, specifically about like results, right? Like so often we forget that the goal is a result of the process that we use to get to the goal. And I think something that is not taken advantage of enough is like speaking on your desires. I heard someone say once that rich people, wealthy people talk about what they want every chance that they get, right? The person said they speak Japanese, which I love. But a lot of us, especially if you were born with not that much wealth, right? But poor, or you just grew up with less, we're taught the opposite. We're taught like move in silence. I've heard someone say like, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And so many other colloquialisms that essentially say, don't talk about what you want because there isn't enough to go around, right? And that scarcity mentality shows up as imposter syndrome a lot of times when we're about to be visible, or vulnerable about our dreams, or we're being vulnerable about the result that we want. And you mentioned that speaking vulnerably at a conference filled your peers with this admiration for you, and it really like created so much connection and opportunities. How did you go from don't tell anyone what I feel, which is what you were feeling at the beginning of that conference, right? Like put the mask on, just get it done, look confident, to a place where you realize your vulnerability allows the universe, which works through people, to actually support you?
So when I started this is my first ever business conference that I was attending. So there was a lot that I had built up in my head. And it was that, okay, I'm already at a deficit because I have a spiritual coaching business, which is like, you can't prove that it's real. You can't prove that even when you get results, you can't prove it. Like, and then all of that insecurity of like, well, I'm new to business, or I feel new to business. I don't feel like I've made, at the time, like I was like, I definitely haven't made 6 figures yet. There's no way that people are going to take me seriously. I have to overcompensate by being perfect. So I need to make sure that my outfits look nice. I need to make sure that my makeup is presentable. I need to make sure that I'm asking coaching questions that, yes, move my business forward, but are also good for everybody around me. Like it was very much focused on how I'm being perceived. And it wasn't until I think it was might have been the first night of the conference, there was a breathwork session, 30 minutes. And I was hesitant because I knew that breathwork can stir up a lot of feelings. That would have been my first time. So I was like, I'm probably going to cry. They're going to think I'm crazy. Now I'm going to be the crying, crazy business person who does not belong here. And they are going to flag me and ask the hotel to remove the
forcibly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what happened was I saw in that session that really my ancestors, I saw my uncle who recently passed away, and I saw my grandmother who passed away when I was in college. And they kept telling me like, hey, we did all this groundwork. We immigrated here. We built up what we could for you so that you could shine, not for you to hide. And that was confronting because it's like, okay, we got to train you. We've got for me to shine. Oh, okay. I guess I have a responsibility, right? And so that is what shifted for me. I realized that shining isn't just for me. It is for other people. Like when the sun shines, it doesn't just shine on one person. It doesn't just shine on Alyssa. It shines on, also it'd be right too. It's on everybody, right? The sun shines on everyone. And so what I realized is that vulnerability is a pathway to deep connection, because that person can empathize with your experience. They can see you more clearly. And when you speak vulnerably, when you speak openly and authentically, people not only sense that on an energetic level, but their mirror neurons start to get triggered and they see themselves walking in your path. They feel the emotions that you felt as you are speaking. So that's a big thing that I realized, like, oh, there's power in this. Because how I realized this, of course, was through experimentation. So I decided to ask a coaching question that wasn't more tailored and curated, right? And it really put a spotlight on my insecurity. The coach kept asking me like, well, what is this? What is really coming up for you? And I had to be honest and say, you know, everyone here is brilliant and I'm not. Like, I don't belong. I stated what I was feeling. I don't belong here in this room of people. Y'all should kick me out now. I will take a partial refund. That will be okay. And the tears started just streaming down my face. I expected kind of an eye roll situation. Not at all. I was immediately embraced by some women that I hadn't even spoken to. Just the coach that was leading, everyone came and embraced me. And it was such a moment of, once again, reminding me of whenever you are real, whenever you are fully yourself, your people will come to you. I love that conference with people saying they wanted to work with me with my first summit invite. It was really powerful. The other thing I want to tell people, though, about being vulnerable so that they're prepared is that you may have what's called a vulnerability hangover. Now, a vulnerability hangover is when you are really authentic and you are very vulnerable, maybe show a part of yourself that you're not used to other people seeing. And then afterwards, like it goes well, right? And then afterwards, you're like, oh gosh, what did I just do? I burned out my life. And you feel as though you've destroyed everything. You might feel as if you never want to talk to those people again. You want to hide. And that's just your nervous system recognizing that you did something brave. And in those moments, it's a great time to do something soothing to your nervous system, ground, take a few deep breaths, walk in nature, call a friend that you trust, reach out to somebody that you rely upon, a coach, a mentor, anything like that. That's the time to reconnect, because your body will tell you to pull back. No. Feel what you feel and connect with other people. And that will build your capacity to be vulnerable, more authentic, and attract more people who align with your mission.
I love that. Yes. And you mentioned like soothing your nervous system and using your body, right, to build your capacity. So let's say someone is about to do the thing. They're going to send this really risky email. They're going to post a video, that's kind of vulnerable, or that is a new style for them, or they're just going to make whatever pivot in their life, and their imposter syndrome is screaming, right? Like much like, I mean, you had an imposter syndrome moment in real life. Like you confronted it in real life in front of a room full of your peers. I bow down, honestly. But okay, this person, their imposter syndrome is screaming, their body is screaming. How can they use their body to do what you said, kind of soothe their nervous system and use their body as an ally in recognizing, use their body as an ally in recognizing their imposter syndrome and learning to work with that fear that the imposter syndrome is bringing up, as opposed to like letting it stop them? Like, give us something practical that they can do in the moment.
Okay, so there's a few tools that I like to use whenever I'm feeling hesitation or resistance to actually following through in the moment. Like I've had the idea, it makes sense to me, it aligns with my energy, who I am, but then I'm like, oh, but then other people are going to see it. Then that part is where I can get tripped up, just like anybody else. So I have a few tools in my tool belt. One big one is breathwork. So I'll practice breathwork. That can be something as simple as breathing for 2 minutes. And I've recorded this. Like when I was building my business, I used to teach spiritual entrepreneurs how to feel more comfortable on camera with visibility coaching. So I would teach them how to calm their nervous system. One trick that always works, no matter where you are at, is taking 2 minutes, set a timer, and just focus on your breath. And you can inhale for 5, exhale for 5, 2 minutes. By the end of it, your nervous system, you will feel a noticeable difference. The cortisol levels will lower, and you're going to feel more relaxed, more present in your body. Other ways to make your body an ally is your posture. So I had one speaking engagement, which was so funny because it was about vulnerability. And at the last minute, they told me, hey, you're going to be the first person speaking. And I was like, what? No, okay. So I knew everything was aligned. I knew it was right for me, but I felt that resistance. So what I did in that moment while they were reading my bio and I was preparing to go on stage is I did a power pose. And what that does is it once again lowers that cortisol, but it also raises your testosterone levels, which project confidence, helps your body feel physiologically confident. And what that is I just rolled my shoulders back. I put my hands on my hips and made sure that my stomach was exposed, because that tells our body that we are safe. And then I raised my chin slightly so that my throat was also exposed. Because when we show those tender parts of our bodies, we're saying to the world, as well as our physiology, that we want to feel confident. And people can perceive that very quickly. So you can change your body posture. You don't have to put your hands on your hips. Just a simple chin elevation, slight roll back in the shoulders. You'll be good to go. If have a moment to run to the bathroom, I'd recommend a little bee's breath. So that is where you make a buzzing sound and you use that. You can do that on an exhale. So deep inhale and then a buzz out for as long as you can, and then repeat. Do that in the bathroom. That will stimulate your vagus nerve, which is the longest running nerve in your body. It'll stimulate that, and the actual vibration helps your body relax. It tells your body to release tension. So that's another quick trick. If you're in the moment, like, oh, I got to do this, but I don't want to do this. These are a few things that you can do to just get back in your body. And also just speaking to yourself kindly through that, right? Like instead of being like, why are you feeling this way? Why aren't you pushing forward? You can say to yourself, hey, I know this is hard. I know this is scary. I know it's uncomfortable and we're afraid of what people might think, but I'm here with you. I will always have you and I love you unconditionally. Let's try something new and have some fun. So shifting your perspective is also a great way to shift your biochemistry.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that so much. And speaking to yourself kindly, I think is so important. I want to kind of dovetail that into your a little bit more of your astrology, your Chiron conjunct Jupiter, right, in the third house. So for people who don't know, Chiron is where we carry our deepest wounds, but also like our greatest gifts. It's the wounds that death didn't heal. That's what I say. A lot of times if you look it up, you're going to see the wounded healer 1,000 times. And that mythology is very useful, but I was like, what does that mean? And so I kind of did a deep dive. And to me, what I came up with was the wounds that death didn't heal. Essentially the stuff that you said, before you came down to earth, you're like, all right, put that stuff in the bag. I'll work on it in the next life, right? Like I'll get to. So someone with Chiron in the 10th might feel like a fraud in their career, right? Because the 10th house is career, public facing things. Like no matter how successful they get, they still feel like a fraud. They still feel like a phony. And you've transformed your wound around being other, right? And how you communicate into your gift of like helping people trust their own unique path, because you had a very unique path. And so what would you say to someone who's looking at their Chiron placement, or maybe they're not very astute in astrology, but they're looking at their wounding and they're like, this is why I can't. This is proof that I'm an imposter, that I'm a fraud, that I'm just not enough.
Understandable. Yeah. So if we want to look at it from the Chiron place, as Alyssa said, I've got Chiron in the third house. It's conjunct Jupiter, fun. So it gets expanded in its effects. I agree a lot with what you were saying about like Chiron being the wounds that death didn't heal. It's true. It's there. Chiron presents you with an opportunity and you can take it or you can leave it. So Chiron to me is about turning your wounds into battle scars, being proud of what you've gone through and how you have transformed from it in the positive way, and forgiving yourself for the ways that it didn't feel good. And so if you are feeling like, oh my gosh, this is the thing that's going to stop me from pursuing my goals, I want to share a little bit about myself. I have autoimmune issues. And those are things that I manage on a day-to-day basis. There are days that are very difficult for me. And I used to use that as a reason that I couldn't have a business and that I couldn't be successful and I couldn't serve clients because I was automatically like not reliable. And as a Taurus rising, that hurt my spirit. It hurt my spirit to look at myself that way. And so I thought, okay, well, if I'm not caring so much about being exactly like how every other coach does things, what would my coaching business look like? And that's when I started to be like, oh, it'd be energy based. I would be focusing on energy because I can read energy very easily. So I can do that. That would re-energize me, bring me back into my flow state. And that's the foundation of my business. And then I just started to slot in other things that fit with my energy, what works for me. So instead of comparing yourself to somebody else, look at what works for you. Anything is possible. You can create whatever you want to create, but you have to be willing to look at the places where you need support or you feel weak or you feel wounded and say, okay, how can I soothe this? What kind of energetic balm do I need? Do I need better self-talk? Do I need to prepare meals for myself throughout the day so that I don't feel depleted? Or do I need, I schedule in time to nap every day. And as my energy has gone up, I'm like, well, maybe I don't need it. But then I get sick and I'm like, nope, that's why I have it there. But you have it there for a reason. Trust yourself, trust your body and what it's telling you. Don't fight your body. That's a fight you're not going to win. So listen to your Chiron. Notice what it's telling you. If you're feeling like an imposter around your career, chances are you are somebody who helps someone inhabit their authority in their career. But you just have to learn how to work with that energy And for me, it was vulnerability around speaking up. So it was in my third house, which is about communication. So communication felt very scary to me. Like, oh my God, like I said, they're going to throw me out of the conference. That's what's going to happen. Once I faced that fear and used that energy, I realized like, no, this is actually a gift. I'm receiving love as well as giving love by being vulnerable, by utilizing my Chiron placement instead of just trying to pretend that I'm not me.
Yes. Yeah. Vulnerability is such a gift, and it's a gift that's kind of hard to wrangle sometimes, but when you use it in the right way, it opens up doors that you probably didn't even see. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so your work, speaking of, because you talked about your business, your work is really all about like translating fear into forward motion for people and making pivots feel aligned instead of risky, because what we want is sacred. Because I talked about this in another interview, there are a billion trillion things you don't want, you know? And so what you do want is sacred. So walk us through the actual steps when someone comes to you and they are paralyzed with imposter syndrome, with fear, with self-doubt. What's the process you take them through to get them from I'm too scared to do the thing, I can't even think about it, to I'm doing the thing?
So we start with energetics first, right? I will do a deep dive energy clearing on that individual, and we will literally go through their entire life, sometimes past lives, depending on what their guides show me. And I will say, hey, this is the energy I'm picking up. Can you tell me a little bit about where this could have come from? I see this visually. Can you confirm whether it's, because sometimes I see things that are figurative versus literal. So I will need the other person to decode it for me, of course, because I have not lived their life. And then from there, we're able to detect patterns of behavior as well as thought patterns and how they play out in your life. So I want to think of an example that's not too personal. So for an example, I had one client, and whenever her relationships were not going well, romantic relationships were not going well, she would also have flare-ups with her dad, and she definitely would have issues with her business and people pushing her boundaries. So once we started to recognize like, okay, so this is a pattern. So we definitely need to work on how we're relating to your father. And when I say we, I mean like her, how you're relating to your father, how you relate to men in general. Are you asking for what you want? And are you setting boundaries? Once we addressed those things, it was wild. We had, she did one speaking engagement, and it was a 30-second spot just to pitch herself in a creative space. And she had 5 people flock her and book sales calls, I think 3 of which were men, I think 2 of which she signed. And she realized, oh, like I've been fearing and I've been shutting off opportunities because of this subconscious thing living in my body, this energetic pattern living in my body that I just wasn't aware of. So we get awareness first. Then when we get the awareness, we move into understanding how your brain works. So our brains are smart, especially if you're a highly ambitious person. Your brain has gotten you a lot of places, but it's also stopped you from doing a lot of scary things, right? That's why you're still alive. So we have to understand where your brain steps in and stops being helpful and is actually maladaptive from some of these past reoccurring issues. So we get really in touch with how your brain works. Lastly, we put into the body piece. We understand how the brain shows up in the body. So for some people, like for that client, she would kind of hide whenever she was getting attention for her work. She would just be like, I'm not going to post anymore. I just want to like be under the covers for 3 days. And then we recognize like, hey, when you want to hide, that's when you're on the road to an energetic breakthrough. That's when you're about to sign clients. So I know you feel that in your body right now. What can we do to soothe it? And so we go back, look at, okay, we did all this energy work. We recognize what patterns are the things that work for you. So let's like she loved yoga. So let's up our yoga game a little bit more. Let's spend a little bit more time in the sunshine. And we, of course, I always use astrology, numerology, and human design with all of my clients so that we can recognize divine timing, because it does exist, y'all. It's not a reason not to trust yourself, but it's just like knowing the forecast. Like you don't want to plan a vacation during monsoon season. So you don't want to do that. So you want to be aware of what the energies are and how they can support you. So that's another way that we make sure, okay, you're supported mind, body, spirit.
Yes. Yeah. That's amazing. And, it goes so well with what we've been talking about across the summit, we're 3 days. This is day 3 of the summit, and people have learned about self-doubt and their inner critic and now imposter syndrome. And what I find is that a lot of people that are attracted to me and my work, they intellectually, they understand. They understand their patterns. They know when fear shows up, when self-doubt shows up. And on Sunday, this is why I designed our event Sunday, the Decision Lab, we're actually going to be getting in community. I'm going to be there coaching you through helping you make the decisions, facing the fear. I find that when you have somebody else looking at your brain and looking at your thoughts, I'm not personally invested. I'm not like in your life, right? Like knowing exactly why all of these things are scary. And so I find that it helps to have somebody else looking at your brain and say, oh, well, you're saying that's scary, but it's not like that's really unlikely. I mean, you've done it for me a billion, a billion times. And so what's one thing you'd want someone to remember when they're in that moment of, okay, I understand all this, but I'm still scared to decide?
So yeah, totally. I want to kind of call back to something. Support is huge. Alyssa was one of my supports during that conference. She was one of the people I connected to when I was having that vulnerability hangover and told me I wasn't going to die. So I didn't want to throw that in there. And then remind me the question, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So in the Decision Lab on Sunday, for the people that are coming, what's one thing you'd want them to remember when they're in that moment of, okay, I understand, but I'm still scared to decide?
Okay. I would love them to ask themselves, what would their life look like in 2 years if they still don't take that action?
Mhm.
Would you be happy with that? Is that enough for you? Like really like ask yourself in an honest way, like not in a self-blaming way, but just asking like what if somebody needs what you have to offer? Like how could it impact other people? Because I used to feel as though I was being altruistic with not allowing myself to step into a new identity. I thought, okay, well, I'm just making sure that my husband is happy and my kids are happy and all of that's taken care of. Check, 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 right? And instead, I'm acting as though I'm not part of the equation and that I don't matter. So I want you to look and really think about if you are happier, if you are more fulfilled, more money is going to come to you and also more understanding about your circumstances and how to better them. When you give yourself that opportunity to really look at things as they are, ask yourself, like, this is a great exercise, actually. Go through a few categories of your life. So romantic life, life overall, personal relationships, work, money, time freedom, write those down and then rank them from 0 to 10. Okay. As your life is right now, then re-rank them based on what you would feel if you actually took that action. And notice the difference in numbers. Like those are a little bit like it's once again getting back into that kind of results mindset, but not results at our expense, right? Results for a benefit. So that's what I would recommend to you. If you're still like on the wall, try the physiological exercises first to reset your nervous system so you're not coming from an anxious place. And then do this ranking and be honest with yourself about its numbers. Really look at all the things. And just know it's okay and you can get to where you want to go. Support is part of that journey most likely for you. And that's normal for everybody. Everybody needs support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of support, before we wrap, can you tell the people, all of us, what you're working on right now and about the free gift that you have for them if they want to go deeper with you in your work?
Yes. So right now I'm working on my podcast, The Spiritual Business Blueprint. If you check out season 2, episode 1, you'll see Alyssa as a guest. She was one of our repeat guests. So glad to have you. So you can check out that podcast on all major platforms. The freebie that I have for you is called The 7 Energetic Myths Plateauing Your Income. So this is like a taste of what it would be like to have a little bit of an energetic deep dive session with me, where you can understand, okay, I'm having these physical symptoms and I'm also having these real financial problems. How can I fix them? And you can also recognize how they're related. So it just connects the dots for anybody who is struggling. Like, why do I keep bumping up against this issue? Why am I so resistant? This will give you insights and answers.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here, Tracy Ann. The people are, sorry, I am so happy that you're here. And I'm sure the people are going to feel blessed that of all your information that you've given them. And thank you again for being here. You're amazing. You're lovely. Get in her world. You will not regret it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, guys. I will see you in the next interview.
If today's episode resonated with you and you're ready to turn fear into forward momentum and hit that next income level, whether it's from 4 to 5 figures, from 5 to 6 figures, or even 6 to 7, I invite you to check out my free masterclass, Self-Trust and Sales, Make 10K Months Inevitable. It'll be live April 11th, Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Sign up and catch the replay at the link below if you can't make it live. If you can make it live, I will be doing an energetic deep dive at the end. So bring all your questions and I'll bring all the answers. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. I'll see you next time. Bye.